So with everything going on today, I just want to take a second and think about a couple thoughts that I've had. I know it's been rough. I know that a lot of people are struggling right now, and sometimes life just doesn't make sense. And sometimes the events that are going on in your life, when you pray, if you pray, you're like, what are you doing, God? Why are you doing it this way? And I just want to touch on the story of Abraham. So Abraham is promised by God a son, and he gets that son. The promise was kept. And before this time, Abraham was already faithful to God. He knew that God was a faithful promise keeper. He knew that he was a glorious creator. He knew that he was a great guide. He knew the glory of God in all those aspects. But God is going to reveal something totally different during this time to Abraham. So God's going to tell Abraham to take that son of the promise, Isaac, up on the mountainside and sacrifice him to God. And Isaac, he's probably thinking, these things don't add up. These events don't make sense. What is God doing? But he knew that God was good, and he knew that God had promised him something. So that in Hebrews 11:19, it actually says that Abraham expected that God would resurrect Isaac if he sacrificed him. But as Abraham raised that knife up to sacrifice Isaac, a ram shows up. And God shows a different part of his glory to Abraham. He shows that he is the God who provides just when we need it. And sometimes we forget that aspect, especially during hard times and things that don't make sense, is that God's ways are higher than our ways, and they always make a bigger purpose. His ways may be unknown to us, but they're always for our good. And when things are crazy, when things are going around, we tend to shy away from God or blame God. And instead we should be running to that relationship with him. How do we run to him? How do we have that relationship with him? We have to seek him out. And prayer is a great way to do that. Let's think about a cell phone for a moment. Is a cell phone just a phone? Is that, if I have the cell phone, is that all that matters? And I'm just talking to the phone, and it's the only thing I'm ever talking to is the phone. Or am I talking to another person, texting another person, snapping another person, whatever it is? That's the way it is. The phone is a connection or a conduit to the person. Same thing with prayer to God. Alright? Before God was before Jesus had his sacrifice for us, there was a veil that separated the presence of God that would rest in the temple from everybody else, and once a year on the Day of Atonement, the high priest could go into that place. Now we have the power because Jesus is there for us. He is the connection between us and God, that we can approach God anytime. We can have that relationship. It's like Jesus is the conductor for us. But we have to remember that God is powerful, he's glorious, and if we're not praying like that, we're missing out on a lot of opportunities, because Jesus is like the insulator, which an insulator is something that keeps you from getting shocked. Think about God and the power of God as a live wire, and if you grab it and actually grab onto it, that's going to burn you, and you're going to be freaking out because you just burned your hand or got electrocuted and died, right? And Jesus is that insulator that allows us to come into his presence, but we still have to remember how awesome and glorious his presence is. Without Jesus, we would be a popsicle thrown towards the sun, and as it gets closer and closer to the sun, that popsicle is no more. It's totally gone. It's melted and the stick's gone. But Jesus shields that popsicle stick. Weird metaphor, I know. And we can make it all the way to the sun. We can come into the presence and fullness of God. We get that relationship with him. Think about this. If my wife and I's only conversation with each other is me asking for stuff and talking and like just asking thing after thing after thing, that's not really a relationship. That's not getting to know my wife. It's not getting to know Katie. It's just me asking for my needs to be met. And I would probably have a pretty bad marriage. The same is true with our relationship with God. There's more to prayer than just asking for stuff. And right now we have a great opportunity to further that drastically. With everything going on, we have a lot of free time. And the next couple of things that I put out like this, we're going to have that chance. We're going to talk through, how do we better pray? How do we better get to that intimate level with God to where He reveals more of Himself to us? Because that is what it's all about.